Hello, you lovely scratchers. How are you doing? I hope you are all feeling awesome. Welcome back to another Kidicode Ninja tutorial. This is Ellie and this is your place to learn to code and have fun. In this tutorial, we're going to learn to interact with virtual elements, means the things on the screen such as sprites, with our voice. So instead of using mouse, keyboard or anything else, we are going to control the sprites using our voice. The project that we are going to design is a pinwheel that can spin whenever I blow on it, like this. Such a crappy pinwheel I have. Anyway, stick around, we're gonna see how to make it. We are also going to learn to create on and off switch buttons in Scratch. Without further ado, let's cut to the chase. So let's create a new project, give it a relevant name. I'm gonna name it voice controlled pinwheel. Get rid of the tag and the cat, and I need a pinwheel. Since the sprite is not already in Scratch, I'm gonna upload it from what I've downloaded from Google Image, and I'm gonna put the link to the project in the description so that you can go and take the assets from there, or you can download it by yourself. So I have this beautiful pinwheel. This was the part at the top, and now I'm gonna add the handle. Now there is a line here. Let's take it and rotate it so that it's all the way straight. Small, and here we go. Let's adjust this a little bit to make sure that the pinwheel is at the top and the right position. And also we need two buttons, which is already here. So just I'm searching for button, and here I have it. Let's take maybe this one, and I need two of it. Later we will see what I want to do with it. Okay, now let's get to the code. I'm also going to create two variables, one the color effect and the other spin. So these are going to be binary variables to use it for this with these buttons to switch on and off color effect and the spin. So now I'm creating it. Later on we will see how I'm gonna use it. Spin. The other one, color effect. Oops, color effects. Okay. In this lesson, we are going to make use of functions, and we will see how much easier our code will be read. So to create a function, I'm using blocks. I'm going to create a function for spin. I'm going to name it like please spin, or just spin. Easy and simple. So here I should define what the spin function do. So it's doing something and I'm going to define it. The mistake I made is I defined it on the line. Let's just make sure that it's here as well. Okay, now it's better. I dragged it there, and I'm gonna delete it from here. Now let's write the basic code of the spinning, like the structure, I write it like this. When green flag clicked, forever, so going to control, spin, but in a certain condition. Let's take another if then. So I wanted to say, I'm blowing here, and based on the loudness of my voice, I want the pinwheel to spin. So in order to measure the loudness, I'm going to sensing, and there is something called loudness already in Scratch for us. But before I can use it in a comparison, I should go to operator and take something like this. So now I say, if loudness is less than some number, then going back to my blocks, the function that I've already defined, which was spin, and put it here. If loudness is less than, let's choose a small number so that I don't have to shout. Then if loudness was less than 2, then spin. But we didn't say what spin looks like. We only gave it a name, defined it, but it's an empty function. Now let's define it first and give it a test and see how it works. What the job of the spin function is to simply turn whatever sprite that is called on. So in order to say turn forever, I should take the forever and then go into motion and use something like this. Turn some amount of degrees. So I play start, and based on the loudness of my sound is turning. Let's change this to a different number now. Stop, save, and start. Now I'm quiet. Oh, why did I say less than? I should say more than. Let's change this part first. So let's take another operator. And get rid of the wrong one. So I want to say if loudness is more than something, then start spinning. Start, nothing yet. The problem here is it did work, but it's spinning really forever. That's not what we want, because now if I'm quiet, I don't want it to spin because I want it to make look like a real pinwheel. So let's improve it a little bit here. Instead of turn 15 degrees, now I can say turn loudness, turn whatever the loudness number is. So what happens is the louder I blow or talk or play music or whatever that I want to control my pinwheel with it, the longer it spins. I'm gonna turn it down, and I can also use some operator to make it a portion of the loudness or the loudness complete itself. But let's do it like this. Four, and then you see, it's so natural. It spins and then stops. But right now, since it's working with my voice, now that I'm talking, it's also rotating, which it's not a problem. That's how it works. It can't distinguish between blowing or talking. But it's really nice when you are playing a music with it. It's kind of like it's dancing with that music. Now you see how cool and easy it is to read this function. These 2 blocks of code. It's a very tiny block. It's very clear that here I only have a spin. And if I don't want to know what is a spin, I don't have to be worried about it because it's already defined, or I can just go in it and read it. So basically what I'm trying to say is, since the function is defined, this part becomes something reusable, and then someone that is taking the assets from my project can simply grab this code and continue on it, and it's very easy to understand. Okay, here is this one. Let's define one more function. For the color changing or playing with the colors or giving it some sort of visual effect. Let's say we want to do the same thing that we did for spinning, for changing the color this time. So I want to have something saying change color or color effect here. So let's say something exactly like this. I just duplicate it here. And then I'm going to get rid of this, creating a new block and naming it color effect. Now you see how easy it was to use this function again. All I needed to do was change this part of the code, which is only one block. Now I'm going to define color effect here. So again, it should be, or it can be, maybe forever or maybe let's just say repeat 3 times, 4 times, whatever number of times. And then if you go to the looks, there are some codes already for color effect that we are going to modify and use them. Let's say change brightness effect by again, it's nice to make it a variable of the loudness to make it relevant to our project. I'm going to take an operator here by maybe let's say this time loudness divided by 4. We write first and then we play with numbers, and when testing we can figure out what numbers work best. Okay, now that the color effect is defined, I can also call it here. So when I'm dragging something that I've already defined to my code, it's called calling a function. So here I'm defining the function, here I'm calling the function. Let's add a part which says clear color effect, so that when I clear graphic effect, so when I start as a fresh status. Also we can add a weight here. so that you can more visibly see the changes. Let's say 0.4 seconds, and let's try what's happening. I'm gonna start. So for 3 times, the color is becoming less and less and less, but it's not very obvious. Maybe I say this and testing it. Save first. Wow, it disappeared so quickly because this number is very small now. Anyway, you got the idea of what is happening. You see, every time that is rotating for 3 times, the color is becoming brighter. And I can make it even more. So you got the idea. You can play with these numbers. You see, now I have more numbers for 10 times and then until it disappears. This is such a cool animation we created by this function, and it's all controlled by my voice. Now let's write the code for those 2 buttons. So what I want to do is I want to decide to use the color effect or spin or both of them. So I create a switch to turn each of them that I want on and off. Alright, I have 2 buttons. Let's give them a meaningful name. The first one, I want to name it Spin Control, and the other one, I'm naming it Color Effect Control or Switch. You choose what you want to put. And let's go to the customs. For each of them, I want to have 2 customs for on and off situation. So I'm going to this custom. Let's name this spin on, spin off. So for the off, let's change the color to something that makes more sense for when it's off. Maybe red or orange, something like that. And also the outside, or let's ignore the outside, it's not that white. Here I can write, just to be clear, wow, same color, with black. Spin is off. So when it's red, it means spin is off. Then let's select it and make it a little smaller to fit in. Spin is off. So you can just write off or on, but since I'm explaining, I don't want to cause confusion. I'm writing it more explicit. And a green for, okay, here we go. I'm gonna change it to green and fill. Okay, and I need to add a text now. Here. Color is on and make it smaller. Something I could do is here I should write spin is on. So I have a button for a spin, has two customs, spin on, spin off. Say it was too much trouble to create this. I don't want to do this again here. I delete this and instead I duplicate from the completed one. And then I modify here. So I just need to name it color control. And then on the customs, change this to color on, color off. Easy peasy. And here as well. Color is on. Now I have two buttons, one for color, one for spin, and they are both in weird locations, so let's just adjust them. And when I did make it so small, make it size 100. The same here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to write a code so that when I press this, I decide whether I want my voice to affect the color or not, or I want my voice to affect the spin or not. So when I do this, if the spin button is on, the pinwheel will rotate, and when the color is also on, it will also use the color effect function that I've defined for it already. But when both are off, then none of them is supposed to work. So that I can control which of these two functions or one of them or two of them at the same time can work. Now let's get to the code of writing the button. How I'm gonna write it? I'm gonna write it like this. From the events, when when green flag clicked, let's give the spin. You remember we defined the spin variable already. Let's give it an initial value. So I'm gonna set the initial value to 1. So spin is a binary, has two values, 1 and 0. When it's 1, I want it to be turned on, and when it's 0, I want it to be turned off. So I want the default, like when I start my program, I want the default to be on 1. I also want to make sure that, so this is the spin, that's in this location, and this one is in this location. So I click here to see the code. So I say go to whatever is already here. You see that this number, which is the location of this one, also here. I also want to make sure at the start, at the beginning, the custom is on the green one, which is the on custom. So switch custom to spin on. Now I want to say if I clicked on it, so let's go to the events, and that's nice that we have this when this sprite clicked. Now go to the next custom. So if I click, I don't want it to be on anymore. I want it to be off. Go to the next custom, which is the off one. And also change the spin variable. So change the spin by 1. So what happens is when I click on this, the custom color is changed and the spin value is changed by 1. So you see spin is 1. If I click again, it becomes 2, 3, 4, but I don't want it to go until whatever number. I want it to be only 1 and 0. How to address this? In order to address this, I'm adding a second piece of code, which is, again, when this sprite clicked, forever, if the spin became more than 1, so if it's 0 is okay, if it's 1 is okay, but if it becomes more than 1, then set the spin to 0. So in this situation, it will be only 0 or 1. Like set the spin to 0. Now let's see what happens. So I click spin on. The spin is 0. I click off is 1. So it's either 0 or 1. It won't go like 2, 3, 4, 5 here. But what's happening is this pinwheel is not related to this button at all yet. In order to make it relevant, we need to make use of this variable that we have already defined. So let's go to the pinwheel. Now that we defined the spin variable and we have the spin button working, we need to make use of the spin value inside the spin function on the pinwheel sprite. So here, I want to check the spin, whether it's 1 or 0. Only if it's 1, I want the spin to work. So here, I need an if condition, control. I'm adding an if condition, an operator for checking the value of the spin, and then the spin itself. So if spin is 1, only then turn some degrees. So right now, let's save it first. Right now the spin is 1 and I'm talking, so with my voice or this is rotating. But if I click here, this button is off and the value here is 0. So when I'm calling the spin function, it's checking the spin. Is it 1? It's not 1, so it never gets to the turn function. So as you see, it's not rotating anymore, but the color is changing because we didn't write any code for the color button. So I leave this one to you. You can write exactly the similar code that we wrote for the spin as an exercise for the color, and make sure to share whatever you did on the comment so that we can enjoy the exciting project that you made as well. I really hope you liked this tutorial. If you did, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe to avoid missing the next exciting tutorial. See you soon. Bye bye.